Who believed in you before you believed in yourself? For me, it was the women who saw something in me when I was just starting out. 20 years and 5 businesses later, I'm still here because they lifted me up when I needed it most. I'm Tania Gomez, and this is She Shapes Tomorrow, brought to you by Tania Gomez Consulting and Kismet, proudly sponsored by SN Services. Every episode, we sit down with women who are changing lives, building communities, and raising up the next generation. Women who'll remind you what's possible when we stop trying to do it alone. This year's International Women's Day theme is Give to Gain, and these stories will show you exactly what that looks like. Let's get into it. Welcome to She Shapes Tomorrow, the International Women's Day podcast. My name is Tania Gomez, and today I'm joined by Sandra D'Souza. Sandra is the founder and CEO of Ellect, a global ecosystem dedicated to gender-balanced leadership and helping women access board opportunities. Her background spans successful corporate roles with MTV Europe and UBS, but her leadership philosophy was forged through profound personal fires, surviving breast cancer at 41 and navigating the heartbreaking illness and loss of her 16-year-old daughter. Today, she combines tech, advocacy, and education to ensure women have clear pathways to power. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sandra. It's amazing to have you here.
Thanks, Tania. Appreciate being invited to your amazing program.
Yes, thank you. I first wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, the moments that made the person that you are. And you had a high-flying corporate career with giants like MTV and UBS.
Yes.
What did those early years teach you about where power sits and why women were often missing out?
Yes, I was very fortunate in very early on in my career, and those companies, they were back in the years when I was working in London as well. So in my 20s, I actually started at the age of 21 being a financial controller for a publishing company. So I was very naive, to be honest. I just thought you just work hard. That's all I really thought. You work hard, you get promoted. And I had very good bosses at the beginning, before kind of like that London experiences. And that was very much my work ethic. I had that scary, deep learning curve and trying to navigate all of that. And then when I went into the very large environment in London, working for very large corporate, I think that was another very big learning experience of how to be a grown-up among grown-up. And I was definitely not a grown-up kind of thing. And that for me, I made a lot of mistakes, and from the mistakes I've made, I learned very quickly. And I think, and I know it's a very long answer, I hope that was okay, is that, we tend to worry about making mistakes. We are afraid of making mistakes. And I look back and I probably have a lot of cringe-worthy moments, but I just also learned from that.
Yeah.
I look back and I thought, wow, I can't believe I did a whole bunch of stuff. But at the same time, I look back and I go, wow, what amazing opportunities I was given, I had, and it has all contributed towards the work that I'm doing now.
Yeah. And if you had these amazing opportunities, what made you passionate about having equality for women, and where did you see that women didn't have the same opportunities as men?
I think that exposure in the early days, where I thought work hard was all you needed, I realized that's not what all you needed. I think towards the the end of before I turned 30, I joined an international NGO called Business and Professional Women. And in those years, by the way, I didn't see many women leaders. And so I didn't have really many role models. A lot of the management meetings, and I was very much working with middle-aged men, and I just acted like middle-aged men. So I always just, I thought I behaved like a middle-aged man because I thought that's what you need to be as a manager. And it wasn't until I joined this NGO, learned about and I saw the role models and saw what you needed in order to progress, because I was just struggling to progress any further in larger organization. The challenges that I had, the issues, the workplace issues that I had, I always thought it was my fault. Yeah, I didn't understand. I didn't realize it wasn't my fault. I didn't realize the politics that happened weren't necessarily my doing. And I was, like I said, I was very, very naive. And so a lot of that awareness helped me understand how, how a lot of it wasn't about me, and that it was much bigger issues. If some of it was systematic challenges, some of it was organizational challenges, some of it was about the gender differences. And that is really a lot of the knowledge is what I guess I wanted Ellect to be also to help firstly share, but also to help overcome and change. Because I think until we do all of that, we will continuously have these gender gaps.
Yeah. And at 41, you faced your own battle with breast cancer when you were forced to face your own mortality. How does that change the way that you see, I guess, career success, and how did that change your goals or your viewpoint on your life and your work?
Do you know, the cancer, my breast cancer, didn't really change the whole mortality, career life plan and things like that. It was having my daughter with severe physical disabilities that changed my perspective about life, my career aspiration and things like that. What the cancer did was made me realize that if I don't look after my health, it's, like if I don't look after my health, then I can't look after my daughter.
Yeah.
And so I had to look after myself if I were to look after my daughter. So I had to be, and as mothers, you don't think about that because you're so used to caring for everybody else. But somebody said, and I was like, I still wasn't doing a very good job, but the cancer was my wake up call. It's like, you got to look after yourself. If you don't look after yourself, I got through the treatment and I made a very big effort of doing whatever I can for the cancer not to come back. And I looked at all kinds of alternative ways as well, and do healthy living, because not only did I not want it to come back, but I wanted to live a healthy life for my daughter. And I saw cancer as a wake-up call. So that's changed. Yeah.
Yeah. My godmother, who raised me, was diagnosed with cancer when she was 47, and she passed away by the time she was 50. We moved her 50th birthday forward so we could have her 50th birthday with her. But I must say, I turned 40 last year, and as I get closer to the age that she was, and I have a daughter now. I have 3 sons, but also a daughter, and I think it's really shifted my perspective around how important it is that I'm physically fit, not just at 40, but at 50, at 60, at 70, 80. And, really now is the time to prioritize that. Where when I was in my 20s, I could burn the candle and not pay the consequences, but it's becoming very much more. I was recently diagnosed with some genetic heart issues, which don't have any symptoms at now, but that also was a really big wake-up call where, okay, I actually do have to make some changes. I actually have to be as important my health has to be as important as my children's health, because if I'm not here, then, you know, I know how devastating it was to lose my godmother, and I wouldn't want my children to lose me. I think that.
And that's exactly it, you know, and so like you, and you know, at being a financial controller at 21, I had to really prove myself, right? Like I said, I was working among middle-aged men who have far more experience, and I was, not only was I young, a woman, I was a woman of color. I looked like a teenager. So, you know, I really had to prove myself. I worked my butt off, nearly use the A word. I worked my butt off, and I would, you know, I would just dress myself in the way to prove that I'm serious, and everything I took so much effort. And if they would give me projects that were impossible to do, I would take that on just to make sure I can do it and achieve it, kind of thing, so that I belong in the room, and so that I would do it. And I just thought I was invincible like that. Not just, I wasn't very good with sports and things like that, but when it came to work, it was just no projects was impossible. And that, like, I had nervous breakdown, like I pushed my body to the limit at work. And then when my daughter came along, like she had her challenges, I thought, it's okay, we can do it. I treat it like a work project. And then I would work 80 hours as a CFO at the time. She would be in hospital. She had like multiple hospital admission. My husband kind of like, and we would juggle, and I would pay the bills, mortgage, and, you know, like multiple projects, how we juggle it. And I knew it was hard, but I just pushed my emotions down, because it's just, you know, life was hard. And I think all of that just contributed towards the body just was not coping.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like as mum, we just think I can handle everybody's problem. Give me all of your problems. I'll sort it out. I'll be the strong one. You guys all can fall apart. I'll be the strong one. And so, and then as we do, what I've realized with her and with the cancer is that you can be the strong one for everybody. You can still do that, but your body, you need to be the strong one for your body. Your body is actually telling you, is like, I'm here to support you, but you also need to look after me. Yeah. And so what happens is that, like my daughter's, you know, recent obviously passing, I had to find the business was, you know, Ellect is going great guns, is going international. 3 weeks after the funeral, I had to go overseas. We had an event 2 weeks later. Like, I kept going, but I didn't just suppress my emotions. I just thought, okay, my husband was falling apart. There's a lot of funeral admin. I just knew, let me get through this. I'm going to be kind of like a little bit robotic, not repress the emotions, but focus on what I need to do. But I have a period that where I know I'm allowed to let go, kind of thing. And so, you know, like we tag team type of thing. And so kind of like finding that balance and finding it at work. And I know where my limits are, and I don't push those limits. And so that, you know, now we're 4.5 months later, I feel like I've looked after my body, I've looked after my mind. When I needed help, I went to see my psychologist. When I couldn't do an event, I asked someone else to step in for me. Like, you know, just did what I could. When I needed a break, I just took a break. And just kind of like finding all of that balance. But you can still be the strong one, but you just have to be the strong one for the body.
Yeah. I can't imagine how hard it would be to lose a child. And you said, you know, there was 52 hospital admissions before she passed away. I've only had my children in hospital very brief moments, but it must just be incredibly stressful. And to deal with all of that, as well as grow this amazing business, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot there.
It is. And before she passed away, my husband and I had our first trip to Europe for 3 weeks. And I'll tell you why I'm talking about Europe and the hospital admission. So we got to the point that we had 3 amazing carers. We were having our first international event in Berlin, and I said to him, look, we've got amazing carers. One of them is going to start uni. She's she's in year 12 and she's doing out of Sydney uni. And I said, then I have to recruit somebody. And I when we have somebody new, I don't like to leave them too far. We don't want to be too far away. I said, we've got a very experienced team. She loves them. We love them. I think this is the year for us to go away more than a week. We can do it. Let's do this European trip. So I had this whole plan, coordination that I told to the team, and we have like a WhatsApp group of 12 people, and we have the contingency. And I said, this is the plan that should she go to hospital while we're away, we're not coming back. You guys have all to manage. And so guess what happened? As soon as he met me in, we went on the cruise. The very first morning of the cruise, a carer called. She's got told me her stats and things like that. I said, you got to call the ambulance. She's really sick. So she got into hospital. And when that all started happening, I'm working out, we had 2 family members who were alternating between the carers. So there's 5 of them managing the hospital admission. They were all stressing out. We were kind of like managing the thing. And then I said to my husband, I said, they're not coping very well. I need to manage their mental health kind of thing. And I said to him, do you realize that you and I did this ourselves, plus manage our business and the house? And we were there 12 hours, like shift kind of thing, sometimes more. And it's just me and you. And I said, I'm so glad that how we supported each other through the mental health and all those admission, while our family members and the carers are just not coping, and they're spreading the workload among 5 of them. And they're at ICU, so there was no overnight stay, where we had overnight stay as well. Yeah. So bringing that story is just, so that made us realize that we did it because we did it and we didn't think about it. But that trip made us realize that, it is hard. But I'm really lucky to have an amazing husband. And we just supported each other through all those challenges.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing. It's really the strength of a human, right? I was going to say of a mother, but your husband also, the strength of a parent to just do whatever is needed to support their children and to work it out and to keep it going. Because I guess what is the other option?
Yeah.
You have to be there and you have to do those things. But I'm so glad that you got to have a trip away and everything was okay. Everything, the hospital admission was all right.
Well, so she was in ICU the whole time. Okay. We were away. So when we landed, we went straight to the hospital. And she recovered from that admission. Yeah. So it was a bit of a juggle. So we had our trip. It was just a really weird trip that we enjoyed. So we learned, having our daughter, is to compartmentalize our emotions. Yeah. And because we also learn how to juggle with work. So what we do is you learn to take joy. So we find joy in things. We know we are stressed. So we were stressed about her. We would be before the trip is what we did. So we would focus on, okay, what we need to do for work, what we need to do for life, what we need to do for our daughter. So for our European holiday, it's like, wow, beautiful parts of our trip we enjoyed. We did, eating and dining, and then we would have, really serious phone calls with the doctors, and then discuss, do we need to come back? And the doctors were great. They said, look, there's nothing you could do when you come back here. You'll just be sitting here. Enjoy your trip. It's okay. We will tell you if you need to fly back. They said. And so we have those sort of discussions. Mm-hmm. And so we juggle. We were worried, but we learned to compartmentalize kind of like our emotions.
Yeah. Now, if we talk about your business, most people decide that they're going to set up a business to generate some income, to have a nicer life, or, whatever the story might be. But you haven't really just built a business. You've really built this whole ecosystem that includes everything from AI coaching to fashion to board accreditation.
Yes.
Why have you had this approach around addressing the whole woman, from how she shows up to how she does business? Why is it important for you to look at the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, so the ecosystem is actually called Prism Framework.
Okay.
And it's 6 years it's 25 years in the making, but Elect's been around for 6 years actually. Because when I started Ellect, I wanted to be a business about gender equality. So didn't want it to be, I was very clear that I didn't want it to be a charity, because I've been in that space. I've worked with so many. I wanted to be a well-resourced business focused on gender equality. But what do you do? Like, what is, it's not like, there is one problem or one thing that you fix for gender equality, is there? And so that was the work to say, okay, what is it that what we can do to help solve that? And as I was working through that over the years, I'm very clear, because having been in the space for 25 years, it can't be a training program to fix women. It can't be just, about a networking program, networks to hand business cards. So, and the whole fashion thing is not about making women to look pretty either. What the Prism framework, it covers what we call the PRISM. And you actually said it all. So the P part is actually the presence. So the presence of fashion component is actually about the personal brand, but it's the confidence part. So remember I told you that how I was a financial controller at the age of 21 and I looked like a teenager. I wore like I wore like a CFO. So I wore suits that made me belong, that I was a CFO working with the senior management team, and they always treated me that way. And so the presence is about that you belong in the room, and you dress that you belong in the room. And so they're like, fashion helps you get that. So if you want to be in the board, you dress that you're in the board. And I know you might think like, oh, what about the tech company? They all wear t-shirts and jeans and things like that. So there's an element about the personal brand. There's an element about the confidence. It's not about faking it till you're making it either. But we're very, it is about authenticity, but there is that confidence part. The R is a relationship. So it's about networking. So we have the whole Elect Women events and community, and we have an AI app to make it easy for networking. 85% of the opportunities comes through networks. Women don't like networking. And so we're not just doing networks that we swap cards, we're helping women to make meaningful connections and then getting the networks through that. And it's not only just women networking with women, we're bringing the men into it. Impact that you were talking about, our accreditation, that's Select Stars, recognizing companies that have achieved gender balance in C-suites and boards. And then we've got Elpreneur program, and that is helping women, ex-corporate women who are running their business or launching their business, to give them the skill set to accelerate their business. And then we have Mindset, and that is the AI Coach Sue app. And that is democratizing the executive coaching. We're not replacing it, because we do want, we think executive coaching or coaching is really important, but we're making it accessible, because women, again, don't necessarily invest in themselves. So we want that to make it as a stepping stone. And the coaching AI app is very much the, we took the IP of our executive coach, her 20 years worth of IP, and it's just a digital avatar of her, and making it accessible for people. So you get it 24/7 at a low cost. I wasn't trying to pitch our business, but you just covered that. But that's the ecosystem, and we named it the PRISM framework. And when you go through that, when a woman has covered all of that, we believe that will bridge the gender gap.
Wonderful. I love it. It's great. You've kind of spent your career really fighting for equality, and you've also written an Amazon best-selling book called From Bias to Equality. What's the one uncomfortable truth about bias that you think most organizations are still afraid to admit?
So it's a really good question. The bias, so the interviews that I've done, so it's based on the interviews of C leaders from the ASX that I reached out, and we looked at all of the companies there and rated 4 things. They get a point if there's a woman CEO or CFO, a point women board chair, a point if they're 25% women on boards, or a point if they have at least 25% represented in C-suites. And only less than 5% had had 3 points or more. When I interviewed those C leaders, it didn't matter what industry, male or women, what industries they were from, size of the company, how they were recruited, and things like that. The only thing that mattered that made them did what they did was that they believed in it. And so the bias that you're talking about is that, unfortunately, it comes down to the leaders. They have it. And you really do need to look to the leaders and say, do you really believe in gender balance?
Yeah. And is that why part of your initiative includes getting women into board roles and leadership teams, so that the more women in leadership, the less that it's going to be pervasive?
Very much so. Very much so, because I think that helps, gives that diverse thinking and that different perspective, and giving that kind of like exposure to say, it's like, when you start having different thinking and go, actually, it's not such a bad thing to have, this variety of thinking or this variety of views. We're as humans, sometimes we're afraid of change, but when we are exposed to change, we think, oh, maybe it's not so bad after all.
Yeah.
So I guess, that's a little bit of that thinking that I'm doing. But, that's why quota works, and not everybody likes quota, and it's a very controversial topic. But when we force change, we see, you know what, it's actually not so bad. But when we kind of rely on just the people to do change, and it doesn't happen because we've been trying it for 40 years, it's just, we don't, because the bias sits in with the leader. And the reason is not malicious, by the way. The leader doesn't go like, oh, I don't want women. I don't want, on the team. I don't want them in boards. Nobody does that. Yeah. It's just because it's unconscious.
Yeah.
It's just that they don't realize they have it. They just think, I tried, I put ads in there, I asked for it, but they don't apply. And it's far more complicated than that. And because it's complicated, it makes it very hard to just, say how we bridge the gap. And that framework addresses a lot of those complex issues around it, that we're trying to do. And we need men and women to work together on this, but the bias is so inherent, and that's because we're all humans. We're complex.
Yeah. And I've heard you talk about this idea that working harder or working hard enough isn't going to necessarily get women to that next level. What are the things that actually, it's all part of your framework, but for people who are, like you, working really hard in big corporate roles, or even starting their own businesses or things like that, what are the parts that they need to be aware of when they've worked as hard as they can, and that's not going to get them any further?
Well, But firstly, competency is very important. So I'll always tell everybody, like, you cannot replace competency. And I will never say like, and when I talk about quota, the people push back on me saying like, what about competency? It's important to have competency. Absolutely. So I will never take that away. So competency always has to be number one when it comes to the person for the role. The next important thing for working is what works is developing that relationship. What stops women from progressing is that they don't network within the organization and they don't network up. It may seem fake and phony and insincere, but if you look at it that way, it will seem fake and phony and insincere. And so, but for the men, they are very good at it. And I'm in the top 1% of women who network a lot. And when I say that, and that's because my career started so young, and like I said, I was with middle-aged men, they taught me how the boys club work. And the boys club, it's not male toxic kind of thing. It's because they are naturally very good at networking, bringing opportunities among each other, supporting each other, having each other aside, the bro code, which I discovered is very different with the girl code in some areas. But I've been in Ellect community, and I didn't even know, like I saw it not that I saw it myself, is that the girl code is actually so amazing. When women supporting women is so powerful, but we don't talk about it and we don't openly, share that. But when we provide a platform to do it, it's amazing. And the reason Ellect is accelerating is ultimately women supporting women. When we bring that to this platform, women supporting women, is phenomenal. So to answer your question, like, you apply that in an organization, as long as if you're looking to progress your career, the number one thing I would do, aside from building up your competency, as you build up your competency, also build up your networking.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that I've done well in my life. And I didn't work with middle-aged men. I was a childcare worker and then a teacher, but I rose to leadership positions very quickly. So I was running very large childcare centres by the time I was 20. I started my first business at 21. And then I worked in education, and I sat on the peak body for private education providers from when I was 23. I was the chair of New South Wales, and I was the only one, I want to say under 50, but I was 22, 23. Everyone was way older than me. But and they were all older males. And a lot of other people my age were like, how would you do that? And I was like, well, I just thought if I could get into the room with these people, I would be able to learn from them. And they were all incredibly welcome. No one ever made me feel silly for being young or for being a girl, but I think I entered the room and was really clear from the beginning that I know that I'm the least experienced and I'm here to learn. I didn't try to pretend I knew anything, or I think in the beginning I was happy to take the meeting minutes and get the coffees, and as cliche as it was, I was like, that's fine, I'm going to do that really well, and I'm going to and
I did the same.
Yeah, one of the executives said to me once, he used to call me Sirius, which is the brightest star in the sky. And I said to him, you give me a lot of things to do. And he's like, you put your hand up every time, but then you actually deliver. And, so I got on every subcommittee, and then I was emceeing their events, and then I was, running the networking groups, and I was doing all these things. And I was like, why me? And he's like, well, you put your hand up, nobody else does, but you actually do the work, and you're so thankful for the opportunity, where everybody else is kind of like, it's just another thing on my list to do, where I was like, yeah, I can do it. Sure, let's go. And I think it's probably the best thing I did for my career, because I got to be in rooms with ministers and senior people. So I got to see what that world was like. I got to have dinner with, that lawyers and very high intelligent people that me as a teacher probably never would have got the chance to be in a room with. And then I just took all their advice as much as I could and took the approach of, while I'm young, I'm going to play the, sorry, can you explain that to me? I didn't pretend, I didn't nod if I didn't understood. I was like, what's that mean? And why is that an issue? And it's probably really frustrated for everyone for the first 6 months. But they were so kind about it. And they would, other women in the group there was only a few. I think there was one other woman as part of the peak body, and she was much more senior and very, very large business. And I was in a very small business. And she really was like, oh, come with me, I'll explain that. And she ended up at Sydney University at a very high up position, but she'll still invite me over and introduce me to the people within Sydney Uni. And she was so lovely that I feel that if I didn't have those role models, I never would have dreamed or even had the thought about what else I could do in my life or in my career if those amazing role models weren't able to, give me those examples.
Yeah, no, I like you, I think I wanted to absorb knowledge so much so quickly.
Yeah.
I think, and back then there was no Google.
Yeah.
Thing. But yeah, no, exactly. I think we may have talked about this in the previous podcast, that we just said yes to opportunities all the time.
Yeah.
And but a lot of other people wouldn't do it, wouldn't say it, they were scared of it. And which surprised me, because I just thought they don't come around that often. Like, this is really important. And all of that exposure helped build up the experience, which I didn't realize that I've had so much more for somebody my age. And I actually had because of my daughter and all that, when I said I had a 10-year career break, I still ran a business and all that. I just took 10 years from not being on real boards. But I was on boards in my my early 30s, and an international board, that's affiliated with United Nations. So I've got like all that before it's now people are beginning to catch up with me. So I'm really appreciative of all of that experience, and I'm appreciative that I've made it happen and do it. And when people say, oh, I'm too busy because I have so many things going on, then like I said, like I did it with all that going on in my life. It's just all about perspective and how you do it. I'm not saying like sorry, and I may be going off tangent a bit. I mean, I don't know how also you did it, because you've got like, you have to juggle with kids, so many kids itself. But it's like when you the priorities is like I was quite willing to go, look, I really wanted to do this, and I'm willing to pay somebody to come and clean my house so that I have an opportunity to do that and work out the budget, and I'll let go of something else so that I can do that. Like, I would do a trade-off in order to work out what can I do. I never kind of like aim for perfection on anything.
Yeah.
That was my thing, because I knew I wasn't perfect, and people said, how did you do it all? And that was because I never aimed for to do anything perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm a very much near enough is good enough type person.
Yeah.
I'm strange because I'm an auditor and I look at very fine detail for other people. But for me, in the things that I do, I would prefer to get it to market and get it out there and refine. And, you can't sit on a business idea and make it perfect in your head, because you're never your target market, even when you think you are, and you're never paying for it, right? Yeah. So you have to get whatever it is to market or out there as soon as you can, so that you can adjust it to actual your life. Yeah. So I'm really happy. I launch programs and I launch things out there as everything's an MVP, and we just continue to make it better. Yeah. Over time, your standard of MVP becomes, almost better than what other people are producing anyway. But by the time you've run it for 3 years or 4 years or however long, it is then world class and amazing and so well tuned, because you just continue to improve, continue to refine, as opposed to thinking, oh, I can't start a podcast because of X reason. Well, Really, can't you? Isn't it just in talking to somebody and recording it? I'm not really sure.
I know.
It's so hard.
And in this day and age, like everything doesn't require perfect production or anything. But you know, for me, I don't like making mistakes. And I tell you, like I said, I don't need anything to be perfect. But I don't like making mistakes. And I think they're two different things. But if I do make a mistakes, I learn so much from it. I learn more from my mistakes than not making mistakes, because so we have that whole paralysis, when it comes to, like you say, launching anything, because we want it to be like everything has to be in perfection before we do anything. And then we beat ourselves up when we make mistakes, but then we don't use that as a learning experience from it and reflect from that. And that is really important, that we must do, is that use that as an experience. I look at Ellect, can I just tell you, it's lots of mistakes. It's built on lots and years of mistakes. And success is generally built on mistakes.
Yeah, I totally agree. The theme for International Women's Day in 2026 is Give to Gain. What does this mean to you in the context of your work and personal life?
Well, I very much believe that, the giving, you don't give to expect something in return. You give because you want to give. And with women, or for International Women's Day, in particular, is about like, I would love for people to think about sponsoring women. And when I mean sponsoring women, it's not like, the difference between mentoring and sponsoring. I just wanted to go back, is to talk about how to talk about a woman when she's not in the room that could bring an opportunity to her. So there may be a project, or there may be something that somebody needs, and then you promote her. And I would love to talk about her qualities and to talk about her abilities. And if we can think of a way that we think about that sort of impact, if everybody does it, that's how we can give. And does that answer your question? I don't know, that's right.
What would be your main message that you want women to take from this podcast when it comes to them reaching their goals, maybe when those goals seem too big or maybe even impossible?
Oh, my favorite saying is baby step. Always think about baby step. Moonshot goals, big hairy ass goals, all of that are great. And they may feel overwhelming. But anytime you feel anything like that, just think about what is the first baby step to take. And once you start doing that, then the next baby step and the next baby step, and all those baby steps will get you there. But unless you take the first baby step, you will not get there.
Yeah, I love that too. Final question for you today is, where can people learn more about Ellect and the work that you do?
Oh, great. So just come to our site. So it's ellect.com, ELLECT.com. And we have all the information there, a little bit more about Prism Framework, and all of our, the products that we talked about. Check it out and see if that resonates with you.
Yep. And you'll be at our Western Sydney International Women's Day as our keynote speaker, so everyone can come along and meet you in person there as well.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Tania.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful to talk to you again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person again soon.
Me too.
Wasn't today's guest amazing? Imagine being in a room with over 100 women like her. That's our 2026 International Women's Day events, happening across Western Sydney, Gold Coast, Adelaide, and Perth this March. You'll meet women building businesses you want to learn from. Leaders are solving problems you're facing right now, and the kind of people who become your text at midnight support system. That's not networking, that's Give to Gain. Find your event at taniagomez.com.au. I'll be there, and I hope you will be too.